Hello, everybody. Welcome to ProfessionalQuest Real Estate and Finance. My name is Carrie Willigan. I'm the Assistant Dean of the School of Business Office of Career Services. We're glad to have you here with us. We have a wonderful panel. Please, if you have any questions, put them in the chat and we'll get them to the moderators. And so at this time, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to our moderators. And thank you very much for our wonderful panel. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to ProfessionalQuest Real Estate and Finance. This session will be co-moderated by myself and Eric Maribojek and Professor Jeremy Plotnick. So for those of you that don't know me, I am the director for the Center for Real Estate Entrepreneurship here at the School of Business. The center acts as the university's platform for commercial real estate education and also a forum for various issues around real estate topics, and also as a connection to the commercial real estate industry, which is kind of why we're excited to have this panel today. And to turn it over to my colleague for his intro.
Hi, my name is Jeremy Plotnick. As Eric said, I'm a professor at the GMU School of Business. I focus on a range of things in the foundations area, but my other hat at the school is to be the director of minor programs. So any School of Business minor programs, minor program that you may be interested in, especially the real estate one, I'm the one you'd talk to. And I don't know, Eric, can I present the slide at this point?
Yeah, I think before we get into our panel, why don't we do a little presentation about our new minor in real estate?
Yes, new as in it just went live this semester. And I'm just going to share my screen and present to you a short 35 slide deck. No, it's just one slide. But for those of you who might be interested in real estate as a career, and I assume you probably are if you're at this session, we do have the real estate minor. It went live this semester. It has two required courses, both in finance 351 and 454. And then you can take 3 elective courses from any of the 3 tracks that we have, or all of the 3 tracks, in terms of real estate development, entrepreneurship, and urban planning. And if you have questions about this minor, please email me or just look up on the GMU web for School of Business minors. Real estate is our newest one. And just a pitch or a plug, if you're interested in this minor, both of the required courses are being offered in the spring semester of 2022. So it'd be a good time to knock those out if you're interested in the minor. And so with that, I promised it was just one slide, which is rare for me. There you go.
Thanks, Jeremy. Also, just a plug to the students, I'll be teaching the Finance 454 real estate class, which will be an online class. So as Jeremy said, if you're interested in the minor or some of the classes in the minor to prepare yourself for a career in the real estate industry, definitely check out the classes as well as signing up for the minor. So with that, I'd like to introduce our panel for today. We have a very distinguished panel, lots of experience, lots of advice that they're ready to tell you. So I'll just introduce our 4 panelists today. The first one is Mark Carroll. He's the Executive Vice President of Skanska USA Commercial Development. Skanska is a multinational construction and development company, one of the largest in the world, with the USA division, Skanska USA, having more than 7,000 employees and $6.5 billion in revenue last year. Mark is also a member of the Center for Real Estate's Advisory Board, for which we thank him for his support. Our next panelist is Carmen Romero. Carmen is the CEO of the Arlington Partnership for Affordable Housing, more popularly known as APA. APA is one of the top 50 affordable housing developers in the country, with over 1,800 units in Northern Virginia and more than 1,000 units in development across the metro area. Our third speaker is Paki Crown, a principal of Bowman Consulting. Bowman is a publicly traded real estate consulting firm with more than 750 employees in 32 offices across the United States. Paki is also a member of the Center's Real Estate Advisory Board, for which we thank Bowman and her for their continued support. And finally, we have Ryan Riel. He is the Executive Vice President and Chief Real Estate Lending Officer of Eagle Bank. He's worked in the banking industry for more than 20 years and currently oversees Eagle Bank's almost $5 billion commercial real estate loan portfolio and more than 50 employees under his department. He is also a member of the CRE Advisory Board, and Eagle Bank has been a great support of the university, as most of you have seen Eagle Bank Arena and the various other things that Eagle Bank has done for the university across the years. So welcome, Mark, Carmen, Paki, and Ryan to the panel.
Thank you, Eric.
Thank you, Eric.
So I think the format we're going to do is Jeremy and I will start off with some questions to the panelists that just everybody will answer, and then as Carrie had mentioned, for the students, as our panelists talk about their careers and their perspectives and business philosophies, please feel free to put questions in the chat, which we will get to after a couple of rounds of questions for our panelists. Okay, so first question we'd like to pose to our panelists is, what drew you to this career field in real estate and finance? And can you tell us a little bit about your career story for the benefit of our students? So let's start off with Mark.
Thank you, Eric. Good afternoon, everybody. You know, I came to my role in the real estate industry by kind of maybe a little bit of a different path. Maybe some people have shared this path as well, but I really started my career on the design side of the business. Academically, I went through school, undergrad, with a design and construction management degree. And I worked in architecture for just a few years before I decided to go back to school. I went back to a graduate school program that was more about engineering and engineering business management. And from there, I worked on the construction side. I spent about 7 years working for a contractor. I worked for Clark Construction. Some of you might be familiar with Clark. And after executing many construction projects, I wanted to expand my experience and get into the real estate and the development side. So after that, in about 2000, I jumped over and started doing development of commercial projects, primarily office, some hotel and multifamily projects. And since about 2000, I've been working really on the real estate side, and primarily focused in the DC area. I worked for a local developer called Quadrangle for several years, then went for a national multifamily developer. In 2009, Skanska was looking to expand and grow their commercial development platform here in the United States, and I was one of the early hires, and I've been in the DC market. We've grown this platform from since 2009. We are now in 5 markets, and we currently have about 1.5 million to 2 million square feet in pipeline here in DC.
Thanks, Mark. Carmen?
Nice to meet you all. Thanks for having me. You know, I have some things in common with Mark. I also worked at Clark Construction earlier in my career. My undergraduate was in a very non-traditional real estate field. I was political science, Latin American studies at Georgetown. Worked for a few years in a commercial banking program out of Georgetown because I realized I wanted, I didn't want to go in the foreign service and do all the things I thought I wanted to do when I was 18. And I went back and got an MBA in finance. And it was really coming out of my finance degree. I found real estate as something kind of a niche within finance that interested me. So I went to work at Marriott International's headquarters in a group that was under the CFO, then Arnie Sorensen, who later became the CEO of Marriott. He had a boutique finance group. He wanted his own investment bank within Marriott to help underwrite deals that were coming up all over the world, including acquisitions. And from there, my boss at Marriott went to Clark Construction to start a development group within Clark called Clark Ventures that was doing public-private partnerships, rezonings. And in the course of that work, I went to a ULI convening and heard Nina Janopal, the CEO of APA, talk about affordable housing. And, always kind of stuck with me. I'm like, wow, people can do real estate with a mission angle, and it's not about like returns for, rich people. And it just always kind of stayed with me. And I had my third child working at Clark. My water broke in a conference room. All this is true. And while I was out on maternity leave, I was just like, if I'm going to continue to be a working mom and try to make all this work, I really want to find out what it would be like to do real estate, but with a mission. Especially, I lived in Arlington at the time. What about that lady in Arlington who was doing that cool affordable housing work? And so I quit my job. And I went to go see Nina. She had no money to pay me. And I said, well, you've never done new construction. I do construction. I work at Clark. I know how to do zonings. How about I come join your board and start your pipeline? And we've built, needless to say, I decided I want to be more than a volunteer and stayed. I've been here 11 years and I became CEO 6 months ago. And we've built 1,000 new homes. We have 5 projects under construction today. We're worth over $500 million in assets with another pipeline of, I think, 15 projects. So it's been a great career so far. But what I love the most about it is with a real estate degree, there's so much you can do. And I love the description of the minor, like the 2 keys to me were always my grounding in finance, because you can't be a developer and do this work without a fundamental understanding of how the numbers work. So I'll leave it at that.
Thank you, Carmen. Packy?
Welcome, everyone. I'm happy to be here today. I went into the field right out of undergraduate. I am a political science. I was a political science major in college, but I double majored in urban studies. And when I did that, I got very involved in a local government and the administration of codes and policy for development of communities. So from there, I went from undergrad, I went into graduate program in planning. I will tell you that when I did that, master's in real estate programs didn't exist. If they existed, I would have done master's in real estate program. However, my degrees have been very good to me over the years. I was in the public sector for 8 years of my career, primarily in Georgia and South Carolina. I was a director of planning department in South Carolina, where I also administered a community development block grant program, housing rehabilitation program, where we rehabilitated a 28 block area of the city that included infrastructure and all housing. And then moved to the metropolitan Washington area and went to work for Loudoun County when I moved up here, and spent about a year at Loudoun County in the public sector side, and then went with a law firm. Today, that law firm is known as Reed Smith. I went with it 7 mergers and acquisitions before that. But I stayed with the law firm for almost 17 years, representing building and development industry clients. At that point, then I went in-house with one of our clients, a development client. I always wanted to work with a development company, but I knew I didn't want to work with a really large one. So I I had an opportunity to move in with a small land development company. I did that for 3 years and managed all of their residential entitlements and development in Loudoun County while I was there, and also undertook at that time one of the largest comprehensive plan amendments ever undertaken in Loudoun. At the time, Loudoun wasn't ready for that one, so it didn't get approved. But I had a fabulous time working with the company. At that point, I left the development company and I came to Bowman. I've been with Bowman a number of years now. I'm a vice president of planning for Bowman. And one thing I've always thought, and at least for me, is that this is the type of industry that not one person can know everything. And as soon as somebody tells me they know everything and they're an expert on every aspect of it, then I know immediately that they really don't know anything about it, because it is so multifaceted. But as Carmen said, that's also the beauty of this career, that you can find something if you have an interest in it. You can find something in real estate that really does grab your interest, and then you take that and you go with that, and it becomes your passion. And it needs to be a passion because this business is a lifestyle. It's not a 9-to-5 job. And so I've thoroughly enjoyed my career, and still don't know everything and never will, but I continue to learn. And that's what I enjoy about it.
Thank you, Packy.
Mm-hmm.
Ryan?
Thanks, Eric, and thanks everybody for having me. I just want to pile on to what Packy just said, because that's one of the most important life lessons from my perspective, is each and every day we all have to be learning stuff. And the second that we think we know everything is the second we need to look ourselves in the mirror and do a recheck and a level set. So my career path is much more boring, frankly, than the 3 other panelists. I came out of undergraduate. I had an econ degree from West Virginia University in 2000. And my banking's in my family, right? My mother's a 35, 40-year banker at Eagle Bank. Was part of the founding senior management here. And I didn't know really what I wanted to do coming out of college. And banking gave me an opportunity to touch a lot of different industries, and real estate being one of those industries. Eagle Bank is now an $11.4 billion bank, one of the largest community banks headquartered in the DC metro area. And we have a lending limit. We do deals ranging from $2 million and even below, all the way up to $150 million on the debt side. That's not the total cost of the project. When I started with the bank, we had a lending limit of about $3 million. So a lot of different type of deals that we were looking at in working at an establishment of that size. At that point in time, you don't have a specific job description. You kind of do everything that you need to do to get the job done. So that's proven very, very helpful and beneficial to me over the 20 plus years now that I've been at Eagle Bank in the various roles that I've played. And that's it. It's work ethic, it's willingness to learn, and willingness to be honest with yourself about what you don't know.
Thank you. So next question for, on behalf of the 170 students here, in your organization, what kinds of entry-level jobs are available, and what is the best way for our students to pursue these entry-level jobs? So maybe we start the other way around. Ryan?
So at Eagle Bank, an entry-level job, and we've actually made a lot of hires at the entry level over the last six to 9 months, is what we phrase a commercial real estate analyst. And that job description is somewhat broad. But primarily you're looking at personal financial statements for deals with recourse. You're looking at company financial statements. You're spreading those in the software system. You're analyzing those and helping provide pieces to the full underwriting package that the relationship managers are bringing up the food chain to management. That's on the analyst side, and that career path leads, if you stay in the banking and the CRE field, that leads generally to a portfolio management position, and then eventually a relationship management position, and you go from there. If you want to go into managing of people and thereafter, then you can certainly do that as well. But that's the primary entry level position that I think the population on this call would be interested in.
Okay, Packy?
Well, Bowman Consulting is a full service engineering and planning firm. So our entry level positions really are very diverse across the spectrum of services that we provide, such as civil engineering, surveying, transportation, landscape architecture, planning, energy, mining. We really are a full service company. And so to get an entry level or really to focus and kind of test the waters, the way I look at it, we really do encourage and hire a lot of interns in our company. I, for one, have an intern that currently is in her final year at Kansas State University. And she contacted me last fall, in the fall of 2020, and said she was very interested in planning. And she got to me through our EVP in our Southeastern region. And so I said, yeah, absolutely. And so that's really how we, how we offer internships. People either contact us or we do it through career days, through our relationships with all the major universities that we also recruit from. So that really is the best way to get into, the company. But I always tell the interns that work for me, you're not interning only with me or with our company, but you're interviewing our company at the same time, and really try to get as much experience while you're here across different fields. And so we really do encourage that in our company. So that's how we encourage it.
Carmen?
Yeah, our entry level positions are either kind of real estate analysts or real estate associates, depending on if there's any kind of work experience or if they're working towards a graduate degree. We've hired folks in as associates if they've already started a real estate grad program in the area. Coming out of undergrad, the analyst position that we just brought on this summer, that gentleman is doing everything from competitive loan applications to access trust fund money in several jurisdictions. So he's doing a DC application. He's done his Loudon application, applying for something like $6 to $8 million worth of public money. So, knowing how to step through a process of two different jurisdictions, what the requirements are, the narrative, going to different parts of the organization. He maybe has to go to accounting to get our financial statements and know that right up. He needs to understand, the development project that we're moving forward, kind of the mix of units, the design, the context. We have him also working. We've got a project that has a retail component, but we haven't identified who the user is, but we know it wants to be not another nonprofit. So he's doing outreach to brokers to try to figure out, is there a good fit? So and then a big part of the job at that level is doing loan draws. So for the projects we have under construction, teaching an entry level person what it's like on a monthly basis to give a lender all the backup they need to fund a construction draw over some very complicated $50-60 million type projects. So tough stuff. And this is all projects that I just told you about. Our newest person this summer has, got under his belt after 6 months. And the goal is for someone like that within 3 to 5 years to be in a position to be a project manager on a small project. That's the goal, to train someone to see every aspect of it so that we can eventually have them do that.
Mark? You're on mute, Mark.
I was the first one to do it. Do I get an award for that? So we describe ourselves as a global construction and development company And we really have two lines of operation, the construction side and the development side. And I work in the development side, which we act in as really kind of a real estate developer. Our entry-level positions by title are development associates. They're typically somebody early in their career or recently out of school. And, that's really kind of a position where they're learning all aspects of the business. Typically, that starts out doing a lot of market research, studying sub-markets, even product types. A lot of what we do when we're looking at investing and we're looking at sub-markets or products that we're going to put into a sub-market, we really deep dive into our own research, and that would include, supply or demand dynamics, rent levels. So usually, kind of early in the careers at that associate level, they're starting out doing a lot of market research, and they're also probably involved with a project team where they're supporting anything from acquisitions, entitlements, design, or construction, or lease up as probably a junior team member. As far as what we offer to bring people into the organization, we had started an internship program several years ago, and we've ramped that up to be active every summer. We've had 2 interns this past summer. We had 1 even through COVID, usually coming out of some of the local universities. And it's about a 12-week experience. We start looking for candidates around the January time frame. They come in and do everything from supportive teams to market research to even some type of strategy analysis that we might be doing in the region. We found that to be a good way to get to reach out to people who are interested in the real estate industry, and also they can get exposure to Skanska, and it's been very successful.
Thank you. Before I get to the next question, just a reminder to the student audience that if you have questions, you can put them in the chat, and they'll go through Carrie's team and to Eric and myself. But I have a question as an academic. In your opinion, what would be some key classes or coursework that students could take, or other university activities that they could participate in that would be particularly helpful to junior employees in your firm? So not necessarily the large field of study, but if you can narrow down the type of classes and or activities that would prove useful. And I'll start with Carmen.
I'd say in terms of classes, certainly finance, accounting classes, to the degree someone's interested in affordable housing, seeking out opportunities, even if it's not a formal class, through something called HAND, the Housing Association of Nonprofit Developers. They have a student membership for like $25 that allows you to attend a lot of really interesting trainings that are like 1 or 2 hour symposiums on topics of interest around affordability that range from the technical underwriting to more policy questions, to just getting the terminology down, to understand kind of, elements of it. And the people we tend to hire, we like to see what they do with their spare time and ask them, like, what kind of volunteer work do you do? Just to show that that person has that real commitment to mission. And that usually shows up in, interesting ways. Someone may, shoot, one of the people we hired at an associate level spends his time blogging for Greater Washington, right? In his spare time outside of work. He just loves urban planning, and spends, even as someone else who works at a homeless shelter once a year and make sure they set aside time. So make sure that in your resume, it doesn't have to be every weekend or every night. I know people are busy, but be able to tell an employer, they'll ask you what you do with your spare time. And if it has something to do with the field it is that you're interested in, we notice, and that will oftentimes, rule the day when we've got 2 or 3 very qualified candidates with technical skills. We'll look for that soft piece.
Thank you. Ryan?
Sure. So agree with the accounting classes. I think the consistent thing in commercial real estate or real estate in general is the transaction, right? So getting exposure to the different pieces of that transaction and how they interact, and what a capital stack on an affordable housing deal, a LIHTC deal looks like, what a capital stack looks like on a $200 million office complex that Mark would be working on. That's, they're going to be very different and some more complicated than others, but at the end of the day, there's still fundamental pieces that are consistent across all of those different transactions. Then from an underwriting standpoint, right, depending on the asset class or asset type that you're dealing with, the lease analysis is going to be an extremely important part of that underwriting. On our grocery anchored retail center as an example, that grocery anchor is going to have a lot more power as a tenant than a typical tenant in an office building, most office buildings, I should say. And then that lease is very different, has a lot of similarities, but it's very different also than a residential lease that somebody would sign for an apartment building. So getting into those, the fundamentals of how the cash flow happens and works through a real estate transaction would be a relevant experience for me from a classwork standpoint.
Thank you. Packy? You're on mute.
Second one. So for me, there's several different pieces. The transaction is important. But understanding the entire land development process is important. And that is, and Carmen said this, there's a whole language that goes along with this business that is critical to learn and to also be able to navigate. Because the transaction is one piece of the land development process, but it's not the entire process. And so for me, I think one of the really beneficial places to start for somebody that's interested in the real estate field is to take a class or to get involved in organizations that really do provide a good background in the entire process. The other piece to it is, and this is what I look for when I'm hiring somebody. I look for the communications piece. And the communications piece is critical in the real estate field, to be able to understand from somebody else's point of view and put yourself in those shoes. How do they look at a deal? How do they look at a project? You're going to be working with and in front of many different groups in your career. And the way you become effective with those groups is to be able to effectively communicate, and not just in writing, but in oral communication. But to me, the piece that's really critical to communication is being able to put yourself in that role, and so that you can empathize and that you can then start to really formulate strategy, formulate a deal, and have communication that gets you to the end of that deal as quickly as possible, because time is money in this business. So that's what I would say. Networking is the best way to do that. Get involved. Carmen, I think, said this too. Get involved in organizations. Almost every real estate organization out there offers student membership fees. And most organizations or most firms that you work for or work with will also pay for those. And that's really critical. But the other piece to that, though, is don't just go to the meeting. You have to get involved. And I tell this to my staff all the time. It's great. You want to go to a meeting? That's fantastic. What committee are you going to volunteer for? And what committee are you going to work on? Because that's where you really get to understand the whatever you're pursuing. But more than that, that's where you build your network. And so network is critical in the real estate field, because it's a very, very small company of people. It doesn't seem like it, but when you get into the field, you'll find out that it is really a small world that we live in. And so having that network is critical to your success and your understanding of, how this business works.
Thank you. And Mark.
So my fellow panelists have covered kind of a broad range of I think, really good areas to focus on. Certainly the finance and underwriting is critical. The interesting thing to me has been a little bit about understanding that the full process, and that is harder to kind of experience academically. I think there's certainly opportunities from a standpoint to do that with urban planning and some of the urban planning process. But oftentimes you can find these courses that are kind of a real estate analysis course that are case studies that I often find to be really intriguing, because they require you kind of to dig into all aspects of the development process, to not only underwriting, but entitlements and design and density analysis. And I think they can be really beneficial if you're looking at the part of the industry that is kind of the development side, from developing from ground up. So I think that it would be really good if you can find some opportunities there. What I didn't realize until I got into our roles and into our business, and this is along the lines of maybe along the communications, but also marketing. And everything that we do, all of our products, whether it's multifamily or office, we are presenting to a user and to a tenant and to a customer, and really trying to understand a marketing approach to connect with the future users of our buildings and our customers is really important to understand. And I think that is, I would certainly support going after and taking classes in economics and finance. But if you get an opportunity to get a little bit of exposure to marketing and see how that applies to real estate, I think that would be really valuable as well. And I would reiterate, real estate is a networking business. It's very much about personal relationships. So I would support that same emphasis.
Thank you. Student question, or a question from several students that came up, and this Packy already sort of anticipated this question, I think. But in addition to the academics, what skills? The question is, what skills do you wish you had acquired earlier in your career? And so this is not necessarily academic knowledge, but what skill sets do you wish you had acquired earlier in your career? And I'll reverse and start with Mark.
Early in my career, I was very focused on the technical skills of my job, whether it was starting out in design or in the construction field, and focused on some of the aspects of what I would call technical skill development. I wasn't as focused on more the soft skills and the leadership skills. And I think if I had the opportunity to get more exposure to leadership roles, and early in my career, that would have helped me be prepared as I was growing from, kind of an individual contributor to a manager of projects, to a manager of people, to a leader of teams. And I think the opportunities where you can get exposure to that, if you don't have that opportunity in your workplace, is through some of the industry organizations and becoming part of, work groups and kind of being a leader in those work groups, or a leader in other areas. Maybe it's outside the industry, but in the community as well, because you're continually developing those skills.
Thank you. Packy? Mute.
Sorry.
It's okay. I do it all the time.
Say ditto to everything Mark just said, and you're right. That is something that I feel like early in my career, we all come out of school and we're taught the textbook. We're taught, if we're lucky and fortunate, we've got professors or people that take a personal interest in us that kind of pick up on what our strong skills are, or they can kind of, pull out of you. And this is what happened to me in my undergraduate program in urban planning. I had a professor that, I loved government, but it was a municipal metropolitan governments class that he really started to pull things out of every one of us in class. And that's the one class that I can point back to and say was probably the most influential in setting the course for me from coming out of grad school or undergrad going into grad school and beyond. But I will also say, as Mark has said, early on, you're hyper-focused, I think, on trying to do things technically correct. And at least in the part of the business that I've always been in, which is really the policy entitlement side of our business, every project's different. Every group is different. Everybody that you work with is different. So having a mentor that you can work with in your early years, I think is really important. I got that mentor when I moved to the law firm that I worked with. And I worked with a man that to this day, I think is still the best land use attorney I've ever worked with. But what he taught me, and the most important skill that he taught me was communication, but also his favorite line was keep it vanilla. And what he meant by that was keep everything that you're trying to communicate in a way that people really can understand it, and don't use jargon and don't do all these things. But it was, he's the one that took me under his wing and really taught me. And I just had a great mentor. And so that's where you learn the soft skills. And the soft skills are the skills that really set you apart from everyone else in your profession. It's the way, I think everybody we point to, all the leaders that we can point to in our business, the Milt Petersons, these are probably names that you still don't know about, but you will if you stay in this business, in this area. But the Milt Petersons and the Till Hazels and the men that really, were excelled in and were leaders and are still have been leaders in this area. Those are the things that you learn from them, and you can point to. And so, yeah, that's what I would say. I wish I'd learned a little bit more or been aware of it earlier in my career. I didn't start working with a law firm until 10 years into the business. That's how long it was.
Thank you. Ryan?
Thanks. Just going to piggyback really, because I think those soft skills are huge. They are the differentiators, right? The technical aspect of what we all do can be learned by most people, if not all people. And the relationships that you build are built on those soft skills. The perspective that you have is based on your experiences, right? And that's, as you're looking at, from a 20 something and, putting underwriting models together and thinking that everything's going to work out perfectly per that model is just not reality. There's not a single model that every assumption that went into that model played out as you assumed it would, right? So your ability to adapt to change and deal with those challenges as they arise, those are the soft skills that help you get there and help the team around you get to the right answer for that particular project. It's real. I mean, Packy's talking about doing, entitlement stuff, right? There's how many argument or how many different assumptions do you make going into an entitlement process that just don't play out like you foresee, right? And then you pivot, right? You pivot and you make lemonade out of that lemon. And that's, the soft skills just let you do that. It's life experience that will help people get them. There are things you can do, to Mark's point, to, enhance that at an early age. But there's just no trade for experience, frankly.
Thank you. And Carmen.
I echo what everyone else has said, and it really does come down to, in this field, mentorship opportunities, really trying to expose yourself. And especially now with COVID and everything being remote, like a lot of what I learned was being in the room and seeing people who were really smart defend a zoning case in front of an angry mob, or someone asking them really hard questions and seeing what someone like pauses and then says to like turn the tide, right? Or, being in an investment committee, watching someone defend their deal, how they choose to present risks and mitigation. So make sure, even in a virtual world, that you try to find opportunities to observe, because I think in this business, the learning curve is steep. So you really want to kind of try to find an opportunity to, maybe it's going to seminars and case studies where people are really digging into their deals. And George Mason does a really nice job doing case studies like that, where you bring developers to do a deep dive and they kind of walk you through all the challenges. You learn a lot from that, and that gives you inspiration for something. A lot of things App has done. I've stolen a good idea from the West Coast and brought it here. Like, none of this is rocket science. For the most part, we are, there is a formula to this that can definitely be learned by watching and kind of leaning in and trying to find mentors in the business who you trust to ask. There are no dumb questions, but that you can be vulnerable and say, hey, you said this, I'm interested in learning more about this, and digging in a little bit.
Thank you. We hear a lot in the media about the current labor market, and depending on who you're listening to, there's tons of jobs and not enough workers, or the skill set is mismatched, or there's different takes on the labor market. I'd like to ask you about your perspective on the labor market for your industry, your company, and what you're experiencing today. Is it a good time to be in the market as a potential new employee, or is it a tough time? And I'll start with Packy.
It's a good time for our company to be in the market. I think last week I heard that we have, I think, 150 open positions in our company. Now we're, a national company, but and I would expect that Mark's, Skanska probably is way up there too. But it's a good time to be in the market. But the other thing I will say, though, as I said, I'm a different kind of animal in an engineering, planning firm, because I focus more in the policy entitlement, field, and those are the clients I've worked with for years. So that's not somebody that can just walk in off the street and apply for a job and have those skill sets. So that's where you really have to to understand if that's part of the business that you think is really fascinating and you want to get into it. That's the part of the business. All of it does, but that's where you really have to have your time in the business so that you can learn, like other panelists have said, you learn from others, you through observation, mentorship, and all these other things. But there are certain skills that are needed for each job, and you need to understand that when you're looking for a job. It's not just I've got this degree and therefore I'm going to be perfect for this job. That's not the way the real estate world works. It's on an entry level maybe, but when you start to get into upper level and mid level, then it starts to get really drilled down. I can tell you when I moved into the Washington area, I know 30 years ago now, when I moved up here and applied for jobs, and every job ad that I was applying for said, and Northern Virginia experience preferred for the candidate. Well, I was from South Carolina, Georgia area, and I'm like, well, that sounds a little snooty to me. I mean, I don't know why they need that. Well, I can tell you today why they need it, because this is a different area. And so I tell you that because every region's different, every jurisdiction's different. And so keep that in mind. If you are going to graduate this year and you go, you know what, I think I'm going to move to, I don't know, pick a state anywhere in the country other than this area. If you don't have any connections there, then you better understand kind of the whole region very well and understand kind of what you're getting into. And so that's a piece I always ask, candidates that I'm interviewing, well, why are you applying for this job here? And that tells me a lot about, what they're really looking for. And that helps you be true to yourself too, when you're looking for jobs and opportunities. So, but we have a lot of jobs. Go to our website and you can, we've got jobs galore right now. Yes.
Thank you.
And doing well.
Good. Mark?
So we are, as kind of a global business, the US is one of our growing markets. And we're trying to expand in not only in the regions that we're in 5 markets now, but hopefully to grow into other geographies. We are hiring. We have been trying to hire. I would say from a standpoint of how we organize our teams, so we're a ground up developer, and the way we're structured might be a little different from other groups, is we expect our developers to be able to take experience from finding an opportunity, underwriting it, taking it through acquisition, entitlements, design, construction, lease up, and divestment, the whole thing. We're not compartmentalized. Some groups may have like an acquisitions team and then other design and construction. So we're looking for kind of a all-around athlete, I guess I would say, within the industry. That's how we run our business. Right now, I would say that the candidates that we see, we try to focus on hiring people with diverse backgrounds, because we like people with different ways of thinking. So we're not just hiring certain people that might have just a design background or a construction background. We try to bring other people into the group that are interested in real estate, so that we can bring different ways of thinking into the team. At the junior levels, call it the associate levels, we seem to be able to find a lot more candidates in the market right now and a lot more people interested, because we're trying to bring them in and grow them into the organization. I guess as we look for people with more experience, it gets a little bit tougher. It's tougher in the market right now if we're trying to hire someone who can kind of run all aspects of a development project. There aren't as many candidates that we're finding out there in the market. And that may be because some of the experience we're looking for is someone who can really kind of handle all aspects of it. But I think from what I can tell, there's a lot of opportunities in the market. And there's a range of positions from entry level up through managers and even more senior positions.
Thank you. Carmen?
And I think for entry level positions, I would say, we definitely are hiring. We hired 12 people this year. Some of those were replacement. A lot of them, they were their first jobs ever. So I think very much in keeping with, I think, some of your student population here. And in situations like that, since people haven't had a chance to have a resume to tout, we love seeing candidates that maybe did a case study competition or something as a student that differentiated them. Like they took some initiative beyond their coursework to simulate what it's like to be a developer. Maybe, there's one guy we hired a few years ago who was on the West Coast, did a competition through Bank of America around affordable housing. We were in a bidding war with another nonprofit to hire him. And when we got him here, that other person called me, how'd you get this kid? I mean, this is the guy's first job. And we had a bidding war between him and another really big nonprofit because we were so impressed that someone coming right out of school took the initiative to compete in a national level competition around our issue area. And to do the competition, you had to do a pro forma, you had to do a land use plan, like simulate being a developer, and then you had to defend it in front of a panel of BOA bankers. Those are the sorts of things that you can do being a senior in college that really sets you apart. Or go see my properties before you have the informational interview. Tell me you were just there 2 days ago and walked 4 or 5 of my buildings and my sites and how beautiful they are, or what you love this or love that. No one is doing that. And those are such game changers. When you meet someone, like they're in a different pile.
Okay, cool. Thank you. And Ryan?
Yeah, and just quickly, because I think everybody's covered it. The lower level positions, the more entry level positions, there's a more abundant pool of folks. And I agree completely with Carmen and the differentiator being just extracurriculars, right? What interest did you take, right? There's a generational issue to some extent where some folks walk into the interview and they're one of their first questions is, well, how do I get into your seat? Well, you wait 20 years, right? you work your butt off for that long. There's a whole lot of stuff that you have to do and timing and luck. And I mean, there's a whole bunch of factors in there. But we are paying more for positions today than we were 12 months ago. We're paying more for positions, frankly, today than we were 6 and 9 months ago. And to Mark's point, the higher up those positions are, the harder they are to peg. And back to the soft skills component, integrating a new employee to an already high performing team is a very, very challenging thing to do. So and the interview process, we can go through any number of exercises and questionnaires and personality tests. You can do anything, right? But at the end of the day, it's somewhat of a crapshoot. What the bet you're making on that person, you're making the best decision you can in the time frame that you are. And then it's a two-sided venture, right? The company and the existing team need to integrate that person onto their platform and make that person feel valuable. The incoming person needs to make that platform feel valuable and show some value in that new role. But it is a good time to be looking for a job for any capable person, in my view.
Great. Thank you very much. I have a bunch more questions, but I see that we're already a little bit over time. So we'll have to leave it there. And with my thanks, with the school's thanks, and with the university's thanks to all of our panelists for sharing their time and insights with us today. One quick announcement: Carrie did inform us that the School of Business Career Center does have a great mentorship program called Mason Mentors. And if you go to masonmentors.gmu.edu, you can learn more there about that, because of mentorship clearly is valuable in almost any career field. And it's been talked about here in this one as well. So with that, I'll thank you all, and thank you to the students who attended, and wish you a good evening. Bye now.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.